Well, hello and good evening, and welcome to episode 110 of The Other Side of the Ball. Double A, along with Chris, who's hiding in the shadows, and we got Corey Hammond going with the backwards Red Sox ball cap, or is it the Pawtucket Sox?
Oh no, that's the Red Sox.
That
So
is the Red Sox. And hiding in his shadows in the Batcave somewhere, um, I think that's Derek Duncan, but I'm not sure. Oh, there he is. So he is hiding in the shadows.
so you're Batman.
Apparently, he is.
That was a decent Batman voice. I don't think anybody heard it though.
I heard it.
But when I said I'm Batman,
I heard it.
Oh, that was Chris.
Yes.
So does that make Derek Robin?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't think so.
I'm just trying to get a reaction out of him, but he's staying in the Batcave. So
Okay,
Yeah,
now we have.
I'd give a whole new meaning to the Dark Knight.
Or the dark light skin.
That'd still be darker than most of the Batman. So
You're not wrong on that.
the Dark Knight.
But-
Here I am.
Maybe Derek might be joining us momentarily, maybe not. But today, talk about the award winners. Some were not too thrilled. Others were just there for the popcorn and for the comments. So we will dig into that, and then we will get back into our top 7 countdown of position players next week. But nonetheless, here we go with the award winners. As I can load up my phone here, as we are brought to you by the Other Side of the Ball on the Other Side of the Ball Network. Double A. Glad to have Chris Vera back in the house after being on assignment, and of course, the only reasonable choice, that is the one, the only Mr. Corey Hammond. And I think we're going to try the light skin night again. I think, maybe. Do we have you now, Mr. Duncan?
No, I'm not here.
Okay, so you're a clone. Got it. All right.
Correct.
The
What
clone
fragment
version,
of your imagination?
the clone version of Derek Duncan has joined us here on the other side of the ball.
Chris, what you drinking on?
Just some rum.
Just some rum.
Just some
Is
manly,
that
Just some
rum. Just some manly rum.
Is it
Yes,
copper
sir.
or something else? All right.
Zacapa.
But is it manly?
XO.
You think so? Okay.
No. Not I think so. XO. Zacapa
Oh, EXO. Oh, so it is manly.
XO.
Got it.
Yes.
All right. But
Hi,
yes,
Corey.
what's going on, gentlemen?
I like the backwards hat. I wasn't sure who you were at first when I first got on here. I'm like, who's that guy?
Yeah, well, the beard got a little scraggly, so that got buzzed down, and then the hair, it definitely needs some attention. So we're gonna just throw it up in this cap, turn it backwards, and call it a night.
ladies and gentlemen,
Let-
Corey Hammond is Dustin Pedroia for Halloween, folks.
Right. Corey Hammond. He's Corey Hammond's younger brother.
Corey Hammond has a younger brother.
Is his name
Corey
Corey
Hammond.
Hammond's younger brother?
Younger brother
No, but
named
he-
Justin.
He looks exactly like Andrew Garfield. So
Oh, Spider-Man's your brother. Got it.
basically, so watching the Under the Banner of Heaven on Hulu, great show by the way about the old Mormons. So shout outs to those guys and all their wives. But yeah, it was hard to look at Andrew Garfield. Yeah, I mean, look, they figured something out, even if they're related. I mean, they can do that.
Just polygamists.
We don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
It's funny.
There's a lot
I
of
was
ra-
having
No, we
a
don't.
discussion
We
with
really
a
don't.
guy. Sorry, I was having a discussion with a guy who played football at BYU. And we're talking about. I had to clarify which polys I was talking about.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about the poligs. It's
Right.
unlucky.
Well, their football team is very good, and I'll leave it at that. But nonetheless, the
Their
award
honor
win-
code is bullshit, though. Fuck that.
I'm not
Rah,
familiar with
rah.
the honor code. Break it
Rah,
down.
You don't know
Rah, rah,
you don't
rah.
know the honor code. So I got recruited to go to William and Mary out of high school, and then they were like, William and Mary has a similar honor code to BYU, and similar, like there's Jesuit colleges that have it. Brigham Young has it, etc. Right? And what I heard from somebody that went to BYU, you're
Breed him
not
young.
you're not allowed to date. You're not allowed to have any substance. I think it used to be coffee, but now they drink coffee. I don't know. The Mormons are weird on what they allow. Just not
They can't
fentanyl.
drink soda.
Yeah, but they can drink coffee, right?
Yeah. Well, no, they're not supposed to have caffeine.
Right. They're not supposed to have caffeine, but then there's certain whatever. Anyway, the honor code it means that you cannot even be caught with a woman when it's like dark outside, like speaking to them in certain schools. So it was like, I don't know. This is not a good Corey Hammond move.
Speaking to women in the dark is kind of my thing.
I mean, that sounds a little Trumpish.
I'm pretty sure Jim McMahon found a way when Jim McMahon was playing at BYU. I'm pretty sure he did.
Well,
I mean, Steve Young was
in deep trouble because speaking to women while I'm dark is kind of my thing as well. So I'd be in deep shit.
But you're light skinned.
Yeah, but they'd still call me darky.
In Canada, he's really on the other end of the melanin spectrum out there. When he's up there,
that's a good point.
Not true. There's a lot of West Indian people up in Toronto.
Oh, Canada!
I just blend. I'm the blend master.
And breaking news: I heard they're building a wall now, and we're going to pay for it.
Well, if it's anything like,
hopefully they put Justin Trudeau in the middle of that wall while they're building it.
Who? The Prime Minister?
Justin Trudeau.
I think that's Dub. I think that's.
Is that the Prime Minister?
Prime Minister.
Okay.
And I think that's also that's an Attack on Titan anime reference. So good on you, Chris. I know that went way over all of you guys' heads, but anyway, check out the show. It's a good watch.
Well, Akira is still the goat of anime. But that's just one man's opinion.
So there's apparently a comment that says the price is right. He says, "See you fellas in a few." That's a cryptic tease for what may be in this show later on. So we'll have to check up on that. Stay tuned, as some people say.
But here and now, on this past Monday, the award winners, and hello Mizzle, co-host of the Mizzle and Dub Show, which you will get a rapid fire Mizzle and Dub Show tonight as we talk about the Warriors and Celtics. But
just real quick on the Mizzle reference there. Looking at that logo there, Dub. It's a little conspicuous there how bright Mizzle is and how blended in Dub is there. I don't know. You might want to talk to your agent, Alvarez.
We have many of signs. We just like using that one because of the color scheme. Now, if you want to go through the whole collection, I can show you.
No, I'm just joking. Let's talk about these awards that I'm sure Vegas is feeling so happy about.
All right. So on this past Monday, the awards were given out for the ASNFL, and we'll just dab into the first one right here, right now, folks. As Rookie of the Year goes to David Tender of the Silk City Animals, of course. And Mizzle has a comment for you, Mr. Hammond. Just focus on A7.
C-Dub, he's trying to do the Jedi mind trick to you.
You can't say that it is Vegas love or hatred for you because Mizzle doesn't live here.
Oh, no, that was well placed. But he's doing this to you, Dub. He says, these are not the logos you're looking for.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, he can come in and tell you face to face, but that's here nor there. But nonetheless, David Tender from the Animals winning Rookie of the Year, coming off a fantastic season, leading the Animals to the playoffs, even though they lost twice in the playoffs, but played a fantastic game against the BIC, putting up 68 on the eventual Eastern Conference champions. Gentlemen, thoughts on Mr. Tender obtaining Rookie of the Year here for 2024?
I'll go first because I'm not sure how much time I'll have to give tonight, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, sir.
So I have no. Let me start with. I have no problem with the pick. I think David Tender certainly flashed and jumped off the page when you watched his games where their games were featured on Game of the Week. The guy, when the lights were bright, he he balled out. My challenge with his selection as Rookie of the Year, and the only knock on him, is I believe the only reason he had the opportunity to shine was because of a weird mishap within our playoffs, and he got to play in a second playoff game. I think without that second playoff game, we're having a different conversation about Rookie of the Year, possibly. But for what he put on tape and the times he was available to be seen, he was an absolute standout superstar. And congratulations to David Tender. I think he absolutely deserves that award, and I think he has a bright future in this league.
Mr. Vera? Chris, are you there?
Chris feels like he's on about a 6-second delay.
or his 6th or 7th rum.
Actually, it's funny. You guys were kind of delayed there for a second. For me, I don't remember who Tender was up against as far as the rookies of the years were concerned, but I think it's a great pick. I think that we talked about it when we spoke about him originally, and what he was capable of doing. So I really like the pick. I like the fact that he was able to come in and do what he did, and I think it was well deserved.
All right, since you started with you don't know who he was up against, let me give you some of the honorable mentions and people that were nominated for it. Probably the most glaring one that possibly should have won it
is
Dave
my
Valley.
pick. Yep.
Out of the Vegas division, we have both Jeremy Reeves, aka Dark Kent, and Michael Lugo, and H3 Frazier were the 4 biggest, I guess, competitors that he had at the Rookie of the Year position that I recall.
Yeah, and then when you really break it down, the Florida division didn't have anybody that stood out, so they're not even included. I think if you were to give the Ohio guys any kind of a mention, Maurice Lovett, the quarterback that kind of turned around the trajectory of the Covington heist, was certainly somebody that might have deserved a look or two. He was new to the league. He did put up pretty decent numbers. He was an impactful player. David Tender is the guy that, to someone who isn't a football lifer, turns on A7FL, watches games that he's involved in, he's the guy that jumps off the screen. I think that it would be ridiculous for me to sit here and say anything other than positive things about David Tender's game. But I think in reference to who was the best or who had the most impact as a rookie, I think it's crazy to think that in a league where we wanted last year to at least mention Kenny Mack more as the dominant offensive lineman that he was and a rookie in this league. It's just that the quarterback that was playing for his team was a 2,700-yard, 35-plus touchdown guy in Scott Hamilton, and that's why last year Scott, the quarterback, got the nod over the lineman. Tender, in the games that he played, looked better or as good as any player in our league, period. And I think it's hard to make an argument against that. But look at the difference that Dave Valley made in the appearances that he made, both A, consistently all season, always there on both sides of the ball, and B, solidifying the only kind of unit of the BIC that, not this past season, but the previous season, in which they were bounced out of the playoffs way earlier than we expected. He shored up every question that we had on the offensive side of the ball. And in the BIC games, he was the guy standing out at the offensive line position. Now, I think Rookie of the Year was one of the less egregious, mistakes, if we're just going to not sugarcoat it, on who got the award. My personal opinion would be Rookie of the Year would have been Dave Valley, because he, A, affected both sides of the ball, and B, I think his wins above replacement was even more than David Tender, because let's be honest, David Tender, as great as he was and as dynamic as he was also on the losing side of some of those games if we're really talking about the impact that he had on the game. Again, David Tender has if he chooses to, he has a future in this league, and he could be one of the big time names, maybe even the number one on our quarterback list if we were to do it a year from now. But to me, I think Dave Valley was the rookie of the year. And it's a shame that in a really easy spot to kind of make it happen, we once again kind of overlook the more important position, in my opinion, as offensive line and give it to the flashy quarterback.
And
I mean, I think they always do.
And to support your point, Corey, if you look at Silk City last year versus this year, they didn't go any further in the playoffs with David Tender. So, yes, did he sufficiently replace Huff? Yeah, that's a huge feat. But if we're talking most valuable, Dave Valley's addition to it got BIC 2 further rounds into the playoffs than they did the year before. So, supporting your point, again, take nothing away from David Tender. I think if he played every game this season, that he would be a slam dunk as rookie of the year against Dave Valley, possibly. And no one is going to knock that pick. He, like you said, the least egregious, the least
Of the ones that we could.
If it wasn't going to be our guys, I'm super happy David Tender got it, because he was actually one of the people that I voted for that was outside of our division for rookie of the year. That's how good of a season he had.
All right, so here's actually the full nominees that were nominated. Of course, as mentioned previously, was Jeremy Reeves and Maurice Levin from the Heist. Actually, there was a Florida nominee. It was Gabrielle Y of the Ghost. Then you had Randy Rice from the Watchmen, Jaden Webb from the Force, Chris Butler from the Octane, Quani Morgan from Silk City.
That's another big one.
As mentioned, Michael Lugo from Sick, James Mitchell from the Octane, and Brandon Garst from the Octane, because I think this is when Corey was giving ish about the 3 members of the Octane for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, so, well, those are that's also the fan vote list. If we were to give a Rookie of the Year for the Vegas division, who do you guys think what would be the choice there?
Gosh, the 3 that we put up in the Vegas division,
it could be a 3-way tie. It could be a tie, really, realistically.
Yeah, I mean, because Lugo, solidified the line at Sick and got them their first win over the Insomniacs. So
he was like the West Coast Dave Valley, I guess.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
And he played both sides of the ball.
Yes, he
did.
No, he did.
And he was effective. Yeah, he was effective on both sides too.
And then Jeremy Reeves is our version of Deontay Henderson in Las Vegas. Just an absolute lockdown guy at the middle linebacker, side to side, great pursuit, perfect tackler. Probably my favorite new player in the Vegas division. All around good guy as well. There's just a ton of great things to say about him. And then I don't know that anyone was more impactful for any team nationwide than Jaden Webb was.
Mr. Excitement.
Unfortunately, he played all 3 phases of the ball, and I think because of that, he was limited in his production capability in the late parts of games, and that's how the Force ended up losing to their tougher opponents. But I mean, Jaden Webb is a star in this league, and
absolutely
deserving of this conversation.
Absolutely, wholeheartedly. Moving on now to the Offensive Player of the Year, which again goes to David Tender of the Silk City Animals. And here were the nominees for all them in this category. Of course, Big Kenny Mack from the Insomniacs. Of course, the legendary Ashanti Worthy from the BIC. Christian Williams from the Nightcrawlers. Marlon Anderson from the Watchmen. Rico Holmes from the Nightcrawlers. Mr. Wilkerson from the Insomniacs. Jason Sisson from the U. Chris Butler, there's that name again, from the Octane. Scott Scooter Hamilton. James Mitchell from the Octane. Martez Johnson from the Columbus Explorers. And Ametrius Hall from the Covington Heist. A lot of Midwest love here on this Offensive Player of the Year category, but
yeah, because there's 3 from one friggin' team. No, man.
Well, first let's give James Mitchell his flowers. That guy's another guy that pops off the screen when you watch an Octane game. He is.
Yeah, no. Listen, I think the funny thing about the awards conversation when you have it is when you make a stake about some guy or some, award, whatever, it sounds like you're hating on the other guys, and which it isn't. It's just, this is how we're, kind of categorizing the specifics of their season. I think we're falling into an interesting precedent because last year, the offensive player of the year was Mark Bagway, and it's the same thing, right? Mark Bagway last year, even though he wasn't a rookie because we had seen him the previous year, especially in that Delaware game against the Rare Breed. But Mark Bagway, when he burst onto the scene, he had the 2 incredible playoff games, right? The one was against the Watchmen, and everybody kind of saw that. And then the championship game. Now, he did win those games, or most of those playoffs games. He didn't go 0-2 in the playoffs. But he also didn't play in every single regular season game. So when you looked at the per game output that he was in, Mark Bagway, as well as this year's version, David Tender, they're like 425 yards of passing per game and like 75 yards of rushing. And when you say that, it sounds like we're talking about an NCAA college football, playoff game in the video game, right? But I will say this about Tender. He does deserve some kind of love for what he was able to do. See, offensive player of the year, I think should be the guy that in the regular season, because it seems to me like more of a regular season award, statistically just stands out. And for me, just Tender, when you put him next to other guys that put up, numbers and yards, to me, the offensive player of the year, just statistically and what he was able to do as an offensive player, I felt like for me, it was Sterry Codrington. And now we'll obviously be mentioning that name later. And then, I think the other conversation we'll have is why not Insomniacs in these spots. And I think the Vegas guys will be interested to hear what, hater announcer Corey Hammond has to say about that. But offensive player of the year and rookie of the year to a guy that, Max played every snap at the quarterback position in 4 games, and 2 of those were playoff losses. To me, it just feels like we went with the shiny new thing that we saw most recently, and it took away from a lot of the other, guys that are even on that list that were, completely heads and shoulders better statistically. Right. And some of those names are just the same thing. And no disrespect to my guy, Ashanti Worthy. You look at the numbers, Ashanti Worthy was not the offensive player that he is year in, year out for a lot of the same reasons why I don't think you see Insomniacs on this list. When it comes to talent, no one's questioned any of these guys that we're talking about. But when it comes to pure output, we're not talking about guys that had years like, for instance, Darren Palmer. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but to me, when you watch a full season of Darren Palmer get somewhere between 70 and 85 receptions for close to 1,000 yards in the 9 games that he played, it's kind of ridiculous to think that the 1,600 passing yards that David Tender had, and 2 of those games included the 400-yard performances in the playoffs. I'm not sure if that's the right move, but again, you can't take away from what the player did in front of our eyes. And I think honestly, and it wasn't me, by the way, whoever was voting on these awards is looking at a guy that they just are really interested to see play more. And if that's the criteria for this award, I don't know if there's an offensive player that you would rather turn on A7FL on the YouTube channel A7FL and see him on the screen. I don't think you're more excited to see Tender than anybody else, and maybe that's what the criteria they were going on was.
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you said the shiny thing, right? I think David Tender is the box office draw, and I think you nailed it with your last statement. But as far as offensive player of the year, I think Sterry certainly could have walked away with that award. You mentioned Darren Palmer, another guy from the Vegas division, Anthony Wilkerson, RTC. If you were to talk solely output and what he meant to a team and how he was used on the offensive side of the ball, is another guy who absolutely stands out in that regard. So, and then Jaden Webb. I mean, he was the force offense this year, right? If there was plays to be made, he was going to be the one making it, but the force didn't go far in the playoffs, so I think that disqualified them from being in contention for some of these awards.
Well, and I think with Jaden Webb, he feels more to me like a Deshaun Jackson or a Tyreek Hill that doesn't beat up his pregnant wife, where he's making huge plays. What did I say something that was factually inaccurate? I'm sorry.
No, you said something that was.
That's why. No, I know. I just exactly.
You should have told her to duck.
I mean, you have to tell two people to duck at that point.
No, you can tell one.
Yeah, she's taking the other one.
He's short, so he's aiming at the same spot anyway. Where if this woman is taller than 5'5", he's looking up.
Oh my,
Tyreek Hill, big strong man. But those types of wide receivers, I feel like Jaden Webb kind of fits that same mold where he's, peel the top off of the defense, make the huge play. Offensive Player of the Year, I think he was one of those shiny new toys that it's like if he were a player in Madden, you would just be spamming goes with him on that play action, PAFL streak or whatever, right? I think that's a play. I haven't played real Madden in a while. I actually play football still. So, but to me, like when you mention some of the guys out in the Vegas division, I think there are a lot of guys that are talented. The tough part is though, and I think we'll get into this conversation when we're done with all the individual awards. Which roster in Vegas has a guy that's their guy that they rely on consistently? Right. If you were to spread out the percentages in targets as a wide receiver or carries as a running back, which of these teams and which of these players is the bell cow or the high percentage targets or carries guy?
That's definitely Darren Palmer.
And that would be my argument for Darren Palmer, because at the end of the day, when Sickwit had a 3rd and 8 or a 1st and 10 or a 2nd and 25, because
you're looking for number 8. You're looking for number 8.
I mean, 75% of the throws that come out of Jeremy Geary's hands, I feel now. Again, we can look at the stats, and I think it's probably closer to 50 than 75 because that team is loaded and has a lot of guys. But Darren Palmer is that high reception, high target, and high yardage.
He's the glue.
And if it were me, the Sickwit regular season in which they were undefeated for these, in my opinion, regular season awards, I think they deserved a little bit more credit than completely missing any human being that ever considered playing for Sickwit, even on these lists.
Right. I don't disagree. I think Darren Palmer would be a great selection for Offensive Player of the Year.
Again, my pick would have been Sterry Codrington in this spot. But anyway.
Yeah.
But DP is one of those. Go ahead, Derek. Go ahead, D.
He's frozen.
Okay. What I was going to say was DP is one of those players that really you can always put in the category for Offensive Player of the Year and MVP, because just his credentials and his talent alone obviously speaks for itself. He's definitely one of those names that you can have in both those categories for sure as a nominee.
But I think we look at Darren Palmer and we kind of do what most people do with wide receivers, right? The first thing that we think about when we look at Darren Palmer and when we talk about him is his wide receiver skills. But let's face it, this is a man that blocks downfield. This is a man that will help his running back get those tough yards as well. And we've got to remember that. And he does the little things that helps his team out, not just the wide receiver things, but the other pieces that you look for from a wide receiver to help out the team when he's not catching the ball. And whether it's him running a route to pull coverage, or whether he is actually blocking downfield. These are the hard pieces that, in my eyes, as a coach, you understand and realize. If you're just watching the game and you don't understand the game, you don't see those things.
Basically, folks, that's a football player.
and a damn good one.
Very much so.
Who would have your guys' offensive player of the year been if it's not David Tender?
Oh God. I mean, really, I have 3 of them.
Are you in your league? You're allowed to do that. You're Anthony Alvarez, duh. So you could do at least 2. So like you're dub. So you could do dub awards. I think maybe you shave the 3rd one off.
Well, I mean, as
Jordan Davidson says RTC. So
and
in case we were wondering, and shout outs to my guy
wrong.
and welcome to the
and
show.
He is not wrong in that selection, but of course for me, it's the man like Darren Palmer that does it all, and I got to put Mr. Shuford in there, Munchie, because he does it all, and he did a little bit more playing both sides of the ball this season.
And just to clarify, in my opinion, and now give your double awards out to whoever you want, but that's an argument. Zelly's got a long comment coming. It's going to cover my face. There we go.
No, it ain't.
Hey, I don't disagree with him. But the Shuford argument that you just made and some of what Chris was saying, that's kind of an MVP argument. Offensive player, I think, is when you just put the stats in front of us, you put the film in front of us, the highlights. Who is the guy that consistently was the offensive playmaker? And not that Chris or Dub, you're incorrect about what you're saying about those guys, but I think when you put the numbers on paper, Shuford's got good numbers too, by the way. And then Palmer, it's just such a discrepancy because, and again, I think this will be a conversation that we get further into after we do all the individual awards. When you look at what the Insomniacs do, a lot of what they do is not through just one guy, right? They are an organization. They're a full team. They have tons of guys that contribute a lot.
Correct.
And the more guys you have contribute to an individual team's success, the less it feels like each individual contribution is the most important. So I think of those guys on offense, especially when you saw Scott Hamilton missing a decent amount of time or allowing for Zach Luciano to kind of step in and be the main quarterback in some games. Also Shuford in some games. To me, at least offensive player of the year wise, I think that's why if it is a Vegas guy that isn't Jeremy Geary, and we'll talk about him in a second, I think, it probably is a guy like either RTC, which again, I think there is a conversation to have because even at the running back position, he wasn't the, 90% of the carries guy. But also Darren Palmer, who I think was clearly the best and only go-to guy on any of these top rosters, especially in the Vegas division.
Okay, but you gotta stop with the Jeremy Geary so much, bro. Every conversation, Jeremy.
What's the next award?
Where you're coming from? I understand where you're coming from, but man, anyway. Bottom line is, I understand where you're coming from with the MVP positioning for what we've talked about. But I also think that when we talk about these things, if a player is good enough to be MVP, he's good enough to be offensive player of the year as well. And so when you make the argument for Darren Palmer to be MVP, then it has to go hand in hand that he is also would be in the top 2. Forget the top 5, top 2 for offensive player of the league. So when I look at it, you asked if it wasn't, who won, who else would I be looking at? I have to look at Darren Palmer. I have to look at RTC, and I have to look at Munch, because I think that all 3 of them could very easily be offensive player of the year from our division, because you asked specifically about our division. Yeah. So those are the 3 guys that I would look at from our division specifically. But, the dark horse of the bunch, which I would really have to look at as well, is the young man that we've been talking about that could have been rookie of the year as well. And I think that his name has to be brought up with these guys because his ability to play and pretty much be the whole offensive, and I don't want to say the whole offensive piece for the Force. I think that he has to. We have to understand that Webb is more of an offensive weapon for them, and what he was able to bring to the game was very impressive, considering the teams that he did it against. So yeah, he might not be number one when we're talking about in our division, but he would definitely be in my top 5 when I talked about offensive players of the year for our division.
Now, the defensive player of the year, I think, is a tough one. Parse out.
Well, first off, it went to Isaac Negron from the Patterson U, but
I think it's fair to just say Negron. That's what we've always been saying. So if you want to continue to do the accent, I'm here for it.
I know I went to high school with a Puerto Rican that had that same last name, so that's just the Latin side of him coming out. But
just rolling the tongue.
Indeed. But to go along with the other nominees for Defensive Player of the Year, we have Jordan Ash from the Explorers, Calvin Lamback from the Watchmen, of course, Chris Cunningham from the Insomniacs, Don Williams from BIC, of course, Deontay Henderson from the Nightcrawlers, Brandon Garst from the Octane, Javi Grace from the Chaos, the now no longer Chaos. What's going on?
Yes. What's up, Gallardo?
Hello, Travis. How are you? James Mitchell from the Octane, Deion Southern from Sickwitted, Danye Lyons from the Insomniacs, and Syer Hancock from the BIC. Those were your nominees for Defensive Player of the Year, and Mr. Isaac from the Patterson U gets the award.
And it's his second in 3 years, which is interesting. It was funny because as the broadcaster, and a lot of these guys, especially the older heads, Isaac goes back as long. He's been playing in this league as long, or even maybe longer than I have. So we're always having conversations before, after games. He continued to show us the stats in which he did lead the league in registered sacks by our stats guys. So I think there's an easy way to just kind of default to that stat line.
That's facts, Jordan.
That's
as
right.
He says most law fan to the other side of the ball goes to Travis. Facts.
Yeah, it does. Facts. Won't argue that. And if anybody else wants to say something, go ahead. He's been on every show and has always given us love. So, Travis, you are the most loyal fan.
This but's for you.
Well, no.
Yeah, so
rum is well. Okay, what's left is for you.
And this show is for you. So for defensive player of the year, I think it's tough. If you were to ask me if it wasn't Isaac, who I would have picked, I think it's really difficult to kind of pinpoint again one guy that stood out and had the statistics to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
To me, just based on like just kind of the feel of it in playing against a lot of the guys in the Northeast Division, and in my watches of the West Coast Division, we can say what we want about the Insomniacs and Sickwitted defenses, even the Force defense. What stats, Justin? If I remember correctly, what in the Insomniacs game, it wasn't that you guys shut them down. That was a high-scoring game. I think the offense deserves the accolades there, buddy. But is there a guy other than maybe Revis, the linebacker, or maybe even RTC? But again, the Insomniacs do it by such a committee. It's hard to kind of single out their defense. And then when you look at what Danye Lyons did in the championship game at corner, which is one of the best, cover corner jobs we've seen in recent memory, in back-to-back championships, by the way. The fact is that this guy wasn't here, Danye Lyons, in the regular season enough to, follow along the same lines as what we're saying. So I would have placed H3 Frazier, who I believe had 8 interceptions regular season on the year, and that's on a team from BIC. Again, has a lot of guys getting stats, including Syer Hancock. Amir Chick Morris, and Dwan Williams, all getting a lot of interceptions. That was a tough unit to go against. But I think giving it to Isaac, having 10 sacks on the year, being a consistent defensive line performer, stopping the run and the pass for the Patterson U, it's hard to argue that other than to say, come on, really?
Well, I mean, look, there's going to be, and I don't know who the people are that vote for these. I have no idea.
It was me last year, and I said AJ McQuaig. So,
well, no, I'm not saying anything about who they are or anything. So it really doesn't matter. What matters is the people that they choose, and that's what it comes down to. And let's be real, that's why we're talking about it right now. It would be different if we were all talking about something else rather than who these winners are. And I think that when we start to look at what defenders do, you can look at multiple different positions and understand what they're doing, who they are, and what they bring to their teams. And I can't sell, the biggest, to me, one of the biggest and hardest positions to play defensively is both linebacker and cornerback. And the reason why those two positions are so hard is because of being able to pick up players out of the backfield for a linebacker, running sideline to sideline, but then also covering as a corner some of the best wide receivers in our league. And for me, yeah, is it easier to look at cornerback and say, okay, I can understand why they're defensive player of the league. Excuse me, defensive players of the year from those standpoints. Yes, because I give them a little bit more of a leg up because of what they are doing and what they're tasked to do. So, Corey, I agree with you. There's some names out there that I think could have easily taken it. And I understand why and I'll say Danye for a reason, because of what he was able to do in the championship game. But I also understand where you're coming from with him not being there all season. But I think that sometimes a player that is not with the team all season, we've got to kind of look at it as far as a minimum amount of games played. And I think that, when we look at this, I look at the way cornerbacks play this game, especially in our league, because I always knock NFL cornerbacks. Oh, they made a business decision. Yes, we've even done it in our league, but we've got some very hard-nosed corners. Young man, Cool Case is one of them. He's going to step up and he's going to run support no matter what. And you see guys like him that are going to step up and play that. And then you have cover guys like a Danye, that is going to cover your best receiver and take him out of the game effectively.
Like
so
Deion.
It is very, very interesting because without these players, you can look at the championship game and see what Danye did with Ashanti and one of the best receivers in our division, forget our division, in our league
of all time.
And he was able to take him away from being a weapon. And when you do those types of things, you're making a team. You're bringing a team from being very flexible into being kind of one-dimensional, because you've basically taken away one side of the field. And that is very interesting to me. And that's something that I cannot just sit there and say, oh, it's no big deal, because I watched Justin do it. I watched Danye do it. I've watched other cornerbacks do it. But
that's the thing. That's where I'll disagree with you, I think. Because go ahead.
The thing about it is, with these, when you start looking at what these gentlemen are able to do, it is very impressive, because most of the time you're putting them on an island. That's not something that you see every day in the NFL, even. But we see it almost every game in our league. And to see what some of these cornerbacks are able to do, it's very impressive, especially with some of the receivers they're going against.
Well, and I think just to kind of like clarify what I thought was the issue with your point is you're saying there's a lot of guys. No, there's not. There's actually very few guys. I think there's Justin Shepard, Gianni Breland, Danye Lyons, and then a whole bunch of guys that kind of do an average job, right? Like there's not a lot of guys in this league that can play corner consistently, cover their guy, not get completely burnt. And you look across the league, that's for sure. I mean, my old ass and Jordan, I almost called him the VV name, which I'll never do. But Jordan said, who sacked Corey Hammond the most? No. I put up numbers. I threw for 200 yards against even the U defense, right? So a lot of these defenses in this league specifically, they just try to get pressure on the quarterback, and then their defensive backs will kind of play that short coverage that, like, we'll call it, how NFL teams played Eli Manning when he had no line.
Yeah,
but
you're missing a little bit of what I was saying, and that is the fact that I wasn't talking about there's a ton of cornerbacks that do it. What I'm saying is there's a small number of really good corners in our league that are special. They're very special on what they can do and how they can do it. And some of the names you mentioned are definitely, guys that if I'm starting a team and I can pull them in to play on my squad, I'm pulling them in without a shadow of a doubt. These guys are guys that bring more to their team than just their coverage ability as well. Some of them are returners. Some of them can cover, but of them,
and Justin, like you said, gets in there from the tackles too.
Yeah, and they're really good people. So, I mean, these are the guys that you want to bring in. They're leaders. Justin's definitely a leader. I've watched him do it on the sidelines. He's definitely a leader. So these are the people that I'm talking about that can make these plays when they're out there, but they're also guys that understand the game of football and talk to the rest of the team on the sidelines and make sure everybody's on the same page. And I appreciate that.
Now joining us, ladies and gentlemen, from The Price is Right, no pun intended to Bob Barker, rest in peace, is Mr. Corey Price, a.k.a. CP3, long-time A7FL player in this league, and he's fresh off making the fro look nice and saucy. Welcome, sir. How are you?
What's up, man?
How you doing, fellas?
Doing good.
Right,
How about
doing
you?
real good. Way better.
Well, you came in kind of halfway. Right now we're talking about what was that? Defensive Player of the Year. And of course it went to Isaac from the U. I know you had talked about it on your show last night or a couple of nights ago. Just give us your take on Isaac being named once again Defensive Player of the Year for the second time in 3 years, as Corey Hammond previously just mentioned.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna backtrack on what Corey said. First of all, this is his second in 3 years. Isaac had a problem with who I had as Defensive Player of the Year because it wasn't him. So he said, I'm going to meet you in Irvington, which is not too far from where I live, and he's going to have a piece of his mind. But going back to what Corey said about Isaac, I put Isaac in the same category as Ole. They've been playing since, I believe, 2009, and I believe they've both been consistently the best two defensive ends in the East Coast since then. Since Isaac has played for the Punishers, the Chiefs, the Savage, the U. I believe now he's going to the BIC. I might be wrong about that. But my only thing with Isaac is when we seen him go somewhere else and try to be an impact, that didn't go so good for him.
It went fine. CP3, it was fine for him. Everything was good on his end.
I mean, if you want to
after
talk
the
about
game,
this wise,
after the game, everything checked out. Everything checked out for him. No, but who would be your pick then?
But
if not Isaac?
Yeah, but not to put nobody down. I just feel like my only knock on Isaac is with the Trey Baskerville thing. You know, we know how Trey Baskerville played on the Renegades. Then we went to Snow Tribe. Everybody said he was a non-factor. Maybe it's Snow Tribe, because when Isaac was on Snow Tribe, we got the point video. I don't know if you remember that from Rashard Knight. So, you know.
I want to be Rashad Knight when I grow up. That's what I said.
Yeah. So, you know, like I said, no pun intended. He's been playing since 2009. So if no one in the league is going to have more sacks than the guy been playing since 2009, then, I mean, I guess he deserves it. But my only thing is, too, I watched a lot of his games, and I'll just say he didn't get a lot of sacks from a lot of big quarterbacks like Sterry, like Tender. Like I feel like most of his games he got the sacks from the DC Buzz when they went down there and played them, the Snow Tribe, my good friend Corey over there. So they were trying to tell me on the live yesterday that you guys still aren't playing anybody over there on the West Coast, and I told them it's the same shit over here. BIC is playing the U twice, like you guys is playing Stick With It twice, and then I could compare the Force to the Watchmen or the Animals. And the Animals have not been a consistent team, like Ryan was trying to tell me yesterday. He said they've always been good. Have the Animals ever won a playoff game besides when Huff went there last year? I don't think so. So a team's never won a playoff game, for you to consider them a good team, I would consider Savage a good team, a team that's always been in the playoffs but they haven't won a championship. That's a good team.
You know, I can't go against you on what you just said, because I think that's facts. I think that when we start talking about it and when we start looking at what's going on, the thing that I would like to see, we have now had the Insomniacs, and I'm going to steal Corey's line here. We've had the Insomniacs go back east and blow out BIC by a point, and
It's total blowout.
that when we start to talk about that and look at it, the next thing that I want to see is I want to see Sick With It play a East Coast team. I don't care whether it's in Vegas or in back east or neutral site, makes no difference. The fact of the matter is, and I've said it on this show and I'll keep saying it, this is no longer East Coast versus West Coast. That's all. Let's push that shit all to the side and let's be real about what we're doing now and where A7FL is going. And when we start to talk about that, let's start looking at what these teams truly are. We look at a Insomniacs team that has won 2 championships in a row, but we also got to understand what BIC is, what the U is, and what some of the teams, the Watchmen and some of the other teams back east are. And I think what we're talking about right now is that you have a A7FL that has probably, I'm going to say, you have the top tier teams, and those teams that I mentioned, along with Sick With It, and then you have those second tier teams that are very close, that are trying to get into that first tier. And you have teams like the Force, you've got teams like the Animals that are starting to rise. And we don't know where they are and where they could be, because we don't know what players they're going to have on their squads next year. We start to look at what we're seeing from the Midwest teams, and what I mean by that is Indianapolis and the Ohio division, and you're starting to see those teams move up. Now, we have not seen what we could have seen with the Chaos, which I would have loved to have seen that playoff game. I'd like to see.
And not to cut you off, Chris, but I told them that too. I said, bro, those teams over there in Ohio and Indianapolis, they damn near have more teams than us now. They got about 6-7 teams over there now.
So I mean,
Florida got 3 teams. Also,
we don't know. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what's coming, because I've heard rumblings about Texas teams coming. I've heard about rumblings about other divisions coming up. We don't know where this thing is going. What I can tell you is these teams that we're looking at right now, it is no longer a division of East Coast versus West Coast. That's not where it is anymore. Now it's all about, okay, let's get by the little brother, big brother bullshit. Little brother, if you want to say that, was the West Coast. We saw what they've done over the last 2 seasons. Now let's start talking about the teams as what they are. All right. And let's just go ahead and talk about the divisions as they line up. And let's talk about the teams as they line up. Because that's truly where we are. Corey, you can laugh about it, but
no,
that's
I agree with you 100%. I think I don't know where that's going, but man. But here's the thing. That should be what it was always about, which is, hey, let's just discuss these teams and the merits of each teams. But what you're trying to do is tell these people over here that they're not going to make it about, oh, we're better than them. And I why I laugh is not because you're incorrect.
I'm not trying to tell anybody you're not going to make it about a one side being better than the other. Do your shit. I don't care.
No.
But the fact of the matter is, it is no longer and can no longer be the fact that it is East Coast versus West Coast. It just can't be that way anymore. Now, you want to go have bragging rights? Cool. We want to go have bragging rights? Cool. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is the last two champions were from Vegas, and before that, they were from the East Coast. Does it matter anymore? No, because we now see the fact that the divisions are not as far apart as they were when Vegas started 4 years ago. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah,
So,
but the
players,
divisions are mirror images. That's what CP3 is saying. They're almost mirror images of each other, because what we used to say in the Northeast is, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. But when you really look at it, there's BIC, there's Watchmen, there's you, and there's a lot of other stuff, right? And we love the animals and they're fun to watch, but it's almost like saying the same thing about, when we were watching like the Kryptonite in their early itinerations or OTT. It's like, yeah, they're going to put up a ton of numbers and a couple of highlight plays. But when we talk about the West, it's the Insomniacs, it's Sick With It, it's the Force, and then there's a whole lot of everyone else. So, so Defensive Player of the Year, Isaac Negron. Boom, capped it off.
Yep.
Cool Case says they should be on our fall schedule then.
Well, since he's such a rising influencer, he could just put up the money since it's no thing. Yeah, start using the fall as crossplay. And since that's your idea, Justin, you put up the money, and I'm sure any team would be willing to fly pro bono all the way out here when it's picked up by somebody else.
Look, if I want to, and I'm going to put it this way, and if I piss off people, I really don't care. The fact of the matter is, I get what you're saying with Justin, but let's be real. For years, for 3 seasons now, the East Coast has been talking shit about us coming out there and playing them because they're saying that we can't win out there, and then we win a championship out there. So put your money where your mouth is. Hold on, put your money where your mouth is, and bring your ass out to Vegas because we've already gone out there and won.
You missed the time
here and play it.
Yeah, but you're missing the time where the East had the opportunity to come out to the Vegas division in the West, and BIC got bounced before even the Northeast Championship by the Watchmen, by the U, who then lost to a Baltimore team, who then lost to a Florida team. So that's why I'm laughing, because when you're invoking these people, which I love all of those people individually. When you're invoking the people that are making these types of comments, it's ridiculous to even entertain that type of conversation, because unfortunately for us Northeast guys, there was just a literal blowout on our field in front of us. So I mean, if the Northeast felt that they were so much better, what they could have done was fucking had My Spice tackle fucking Danye Lyons, and then they could talk all the shit they want. But since not Isaac Negron, right? Isaac Gomez, Baby Joker, I think his name is, right?
Yeah.
If the Northeast is so great at football, that guy could have just made one play and all of this would have gone away. So, hey.
And I'm glad you said that, Corey. The same one play that the Daniels dude made on Pac Money, when Pac Money had the chance to return a touchdown and he got tackled.
Yeah, and Pac Money showed his speed early on in that game, and it was really fast. And guess what? They changed up who they put out there in the most important time for the Insomniacs, and the Insomniacs then went on to win, because BIC's problem this year, when it came down to it, and the reason it was a 1-point blowout loss in the championship game, is they stacked their roster with guys they were never going to use and just said, hey, you're a running back by trade. Since you're not going to touch the field at all, now you're going to play 3-on-1 coverage. And let's be clear, Isaac Gomez, a fantastic playmaker, a flag guy through and through, not a good tackler, misses a tackle, they get smoked. I'm screaming, that's why championship points matter. That's the end of the story right there. So, guys that jump on the Price is Right, and shout out to Corey Price for dealing with them.
you got to look at what Denzel was able to do. I mean, they put him out there after Pac Money took that first one back, and once they put him out there, that kind of killed that whole thing for Pac Money's returns. So, and I mean, we could discuss that and talk about it 12 ways from Sunday, but the fact of the matter is, as soon as Denzel got out there, that was it. So, I mean, you know, you have to play and have to understand the game well enough. And I thought that, and the other side of this, we could go back and forth on is coaching and having a coach standing off to the sideline or having a players coach.
Look, we were saying that, Chris. We were saying all the athletes you got on BIC, you got Ashanti, you got, remind you, Sterry said he played corner, or then you got Kels, you got all of these athletes, K-Sign Campbell, all these athletes. And no disrespect to JJ, but JJ's been playing since 2010 as well, 2011.
It
so
wasn't his
fault.
fault.
Keep Trey Cohen. Keep Trey Cohen on there. He's been the best special teams player for BIC since he's been playing. But you mean to tell me you're going to put a running back and a backup cornerback in the most important time of your season for $30,000? That comes down to coaching, like you just said. And this is what I said
in hindsight. In hindsight, it definitely does.
Yeah. And this is what I said a few months ago. There is no coach over there. Even though Carl is the owner, and it's going to sound like I'm bashing BIC, but this is the truth, because I said the same thing about the U with Ryan Shamar and Huff. These guys, I won't say they're not coaches, but ultimately at the end of the day, guys on the field who play the game, they determine the game. And if you're going to have a coach needs to be ready to make a game time decision to win a game. And I don't see that a lot in this league. I see guys who are former players. I see guys who are in good situations take advantage of these things. And when crunch time comes, they don't know what to do. That's what I see a lot of times going on.
Well, I think with BIC, and we're devolving away from these awards, which is fine with me. But with BIC, Ken Stansbury is their leader. And is he the traditional coach? No. He's kind of the role in which, when on the 3-on-1 podcast, Rob and I will go back and forth whether a coach works in the A7. Yeah. And I think with a very experienced roster mixed with a lot of guys that are the young talent, BIC found a balance in most situations in which they have guys that know what they need to do when they're on the field, can make decisions and kind of, act as individuals, with their own responsibilities. But at the end of the day, they also do have, whether it's the figurehead in Carl or the actual kind of tone setter in Ken Stansbury, they do have leadership that they can look to either settle them down or inspire them or whatever. It's just in that moment when we look on it back with 2020 hindsight, there are things that we can criticize. And listen, for all of the guys from the Northeast that want to talk, the time for talk is now over, because we could have done it with actual actions. We could have solved things with what we did on the field, which is what matters. All the conversation that we have should be either breaking down what happened or projecting what will happen. We can't now adjudicate the nuances of, oh, well, they still don't play anybody, talking about a Vegas division or a Vegas champion, when, let's be clear, BIC started their playoff run against an 0-for team in the Renegades, myself, and played a David Tender Animals, which was already 0-1 in the playoffs, and that was their easy-ass route to get to the championship game.
Yeah.
So what are we – and they completely avoided the Tampa Bay Nightcrawlers because, weather, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So if we're going to talk about the road that the Insomniacs took to get here, maybe we criticize them in the 2023 run, where they played their own division, California, and then Chaos last year, and then they got that home game in Vegas. You could maybe make that statement then.
Bullhead City.
This year, 2024, they had the harder road, They had more people that they needed to play, and they had to cross the country to play BIC. BIC played in order. 0 for Renegades. I knew how that game went. Animals just lost, and then they got the seed. They played a Huffless U, and then they played the Insomniac. So we're talking about road.
Now,
Bull
Corey,
fucking
be
shit.
careful. Be careful. You're going to get labeled as a hater. So be careful.
I am a hater. I'm a Vegas hater. I'm a Northeast hater. I'm just full across the board hater. I'm going to the Dave Chappelle Haters Ball. I'm nominated for a fucking award, and they're gonna go hate, and I'll probably win that shit.
All right.
Hater
Well,
extraordinaire.
we got 23 minutes.
Well,
let's
yeah,
get
I'm sorry,
through
guys.
these-
We got sidetracked. I wanted to get back to
MVP.
the award and to recap.
MVP. Go ahead.
No, MVP will be the last one. We're gonna do
You guys
special
were
teams
talking
player of the
about
year.
There's no special teams player of the year. They said pack money. Get out of here.
Still gotta talk about it.
Continue, just to recap real quick. I was going to piggyback on what Corey said because my offensive player of the year, the rookie of the year was Dave Valley to me as well. And I said this on my show because I felt like the reason why BIC lost to the U in 2023 is because they didn't have the linemen and the beef up front.
They didn't have Big Rob.
Now, remind you what happened. They started dominating on the basketball war. People say doesn't count. So you got him. I would say also, if you didn't have big from today, all that came really.
Well, while Elon Musk is hacking Corey Price's feed, hey, Jordan Davison, my team for 2015 will be really surprising. It's the Warriors for 2015. The Warriors,
Not the Golden State Warriors.
No. The Warriors. Anyway,
That is funny as hell. And then he changed it real quick to 2025. It's still the Warriors, damn it.
you're gonna have to fucking wait for 2025. You get one question, Jordan Davison.
So fellas, that was just my thing.
You only get one.
No slight to Tender. But like what Corey said, and I said this on my lives. Like when did we start awarding people who lost? Even though he is a great quarterback, I feel like he's next up. But like Corey said, he did lose twice in the playoffs, and I feel like Dave Valley took his team all the way to the championship game, and he was the most important focal point of the offense. Because without the offensive line, and I'm a quarterback, you're not doing shit.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to
who's the special team player of the year? Are we just gonna say Savion? Because when we did the returner list, comments hit us up. Who do you think is number one? We didn't even decide whether it was Savion Cunningham or Danye Lyons. And no disrespect to Pac Money, who I think had the overall lead for return touchdowns.
He won the award,
and he's great. I think that the percentage for Savion Cunningham is incredible, and the Danye Lyons, the clutch. The clutch timing of when he did it, I think for me put him over the top. I think again when we talk about like offensive rookie of the year and it's David Tender, or special teams returner of the year and it's Pac Money, there's more egregious, like I said, to be blunt, mistakes. But I think it's either Danye or Savion, and I think that for this year.
Well, hold on.
I was going to say Connie Morgan from the Animals.
Hold on, real quick. I gotta ask a question, Dub.
yes.
How many more do you have to announce?
Just
one
more.
Returner and MVP.
Yeah, that's it.
What was it?
Returner and MVP.
Yes.
Well, who's the MVP? Oh, wait a minute. Announce the one prior to the MVP. So I didn't hear what that was.
The returner of the year is Pac Money
Marcellus
from BNC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Arguments can be made, I'm sure, and I'm sure that we could look at this 10 different ways, but I'm not going to argue with the fact that he took this one. Danye didn't play all year. He missed games. and Savion missed games. So I get it, and I don't know how they looked at it or how they were able to surmise that Pac Money was the winner. I'm not going to question it. I think he's a damn good player, and I think he deserves his flowers for that. And I think that if both those gentlemen that I mentioned before played all season, we can make a better argument for it.
And statistically, he had the most yards, most touchdowns, and on a team that he was sharing reps or could have shared reps with Ashanti Worthy. I mean, they were like, nah, you go out there, Pac. And he took care of business more often than not.
All right. Well, the nominees for that award, along with Marcellus Pack, was, of course, Deontay Thompson from the Explorers, Zelly from the Insomniacs, Andrew Ruffin from the Heist, no relation to David Ruffin of the Temptations.
Andrew Ruffin's a good player. I remember watching him against the U. He's a good player.
Chris Butler, there's that name again from the Octane. Quani Morgan from, or Rodney Morgan from BIC.
It's Quani, not Rodney. His name is not Rodney.
Well, that's what it says on the website.
I know, and it's ridiculous.
And they have him under BIC, not the animals. Anyhow,
Oh
obviously
God.
Daniel Lyons, Savion Cunningham, and of course the gentleman that set the all-time record for the longest 3-on-1 return in history, Mozzie Williamson from the Ghost, James Mitchell from the Octane, Jason Sisson from the U, and Brandon Garst from the Octane. There goes the Octane yet again. So
all right, so we got 18 minutes. Do we want to talk returner or do we want to talk MVP?
Because let's go to the most valuable player, which was Sterry Codrington.
Fuck you guys. No, I'm joking.
Of the Trenton BIC.
All right, so I'm gonna start this one off, okay? And Chris, you said something earlier in the show. I'm completely ignoring you. No way. So let's just recap. I said my offensive player of the year, Sterry Codrington. Defensive player of the year, H3 Frazier. Rookie of the year, Valley. And if you noticed, those are 3 BIC guys. And just to be fair, I don't think that the way we look at post-season awards should be dictated about where these guys play. But I think if we're on the other side of the ball, and now that I check it, we are, right? What's down here? Oh, yep, that's what it says. Other side of the ball. Yep, that's what it says. For the Vegas division to win their second championship in a row, and for all of the major awards to not go to anybody even close to the Vegas side of the country, it to me seems like an issue. Now, my returner of the year was Savion Cunningham or Daniel Lyons, and I'm going to give it to Savion just because it was a regular season reward. And I think Jordan Davidson knows exactly where I'm going MVP, because this is a regular season award in my opinion. And if you go by what I define as the most valuable player, it is the player the player on a team that means the most to his team. So not only was he an outstanding performer, but if you take him off of his team, that team has no chance to be as competitive and as successful as they were when he was in. So when you look at the numbers, you don't even know his name, Jordan. Shut the fuck up. Trying to ruin my take. And yes, it is Jeremy Geary, because he was undefeated in the regular season. Nobody was more important in the win against the Insomniacs. And a lot of times with these teams that are like the second tier team in the division, we completely erase the entire season other than their shot at taking down the top spot, right? Mm-hmm. So Sickwit's season was not about beating OTT or the Gold or the Pit Bosses or the Force even. It was, what are you guys going to do against the Insomniacs? And what you guys know better than anybody. What did Jeremy Geary and Sickwit do against the Insomniacs when they had an opportunity in that first matchup in the regular season?
Put up 56 points.
They took care of fucking business. That's what they did. And now the Insomniacs didn't play a poor game. The Insomniacs weren't missing their guys. Were the Insomniacs fully engaged? Was there kind of a little bit of maybe a malaise because they're blowing out every team, including Sickwit at times? So that might have added to the reason why Sickwit got the better of them in that first matchup. But when you look at the statistics, and they're out of this world. You look at You look at the way in which Sikwit chose to play football. No disrespect to you, Justin Shepard. It was not with lockdown defense. That was not the game plan. We're going to score more. We're going to pass, and that's how we're going to score. And the way that they did it is they had Jeremy Geary drop back almost 50 times against the Insomniacs and put up more points than anyone has against the Insomniacs with this specific group, including the Nightcrawlers.
Correct.
And that's my MVP. And putting Sterry Codrington at MVP, I don't want to take anything away from Sterry Codrington, but I'll say this. If I was going to give an MVP to a guy on that roster, it would probably be Dave Valley over Sterry Codrington, because Sterry put up these same numbers last year and made it and got bounced from the playoffs by a Huffless U. This year, when they played a Huffless U, BIC was the better team because they controlled the trenches. And the reason they did so is because they had the best offensive lineman in the league. And yes, Kenny Mack, I did say that to your fucking face. Excuse me.
You said that to Kenny Mack's face?
Right now,
I'm
saying
I'm gonna
right
go
now.
ahead.
No. I mean, in person to his face.
No, because first of all, when I was saying hi to all the Vegas guys, they already, before I even called that game, were trying to act like I was the ops and was like, it's like, all right, cool. That's cool. I don't really give a shit. I'll go up to the booth and I'll continue to call the game. But no, what I'm saying is that I think that Dave Valley not only was the rookie of the year, I think he was the most valuable player on BIC, but the most valuable player in the league, because if you look, and this was going to be my after you guys talk, my Insomniacs take. If you look at the Insomniacs, they're the best team in the league. They built the best roster. They are the best at executing their coaches and their collective groups game plan. But you know what they don't have is only one guy that stands out. And if you were going to give it to somebody, I'll point to my guy over here and pass it off to him, who his pick would be. It's their dominant running back who also played defensive end and was one of the impact players on that defense for the Insomniacs. But again, RTC rotates out to give Juice and Devontae Carter reps at running back, and he's one of many that rotate in at defensive line to put pressure on the quarterback. So again, why did we give Huff the MVP last year? It's because he meant more individually as a human being to the Animals than any other groups of guys collectively on all these stacked rosters. And if you want to stand out in the league, anyone on the Insomniacs, maybe step out of the shadows of all the other guys you're sharing time with and actually be like Jeremy Geary or Darren Palmer and be the most important guy on a roster. And maybe you don't have the easiest path because you're teaming up with all the rest of the best players in your division. And you actually have to play a game that you might lose. And then maybe we'll give you the accolades like we should be giving Jeremy Geary for playing with the number 2 team in Vegas, beating a better roster, a better team, and having it all be on his shoulders. That's an MVP. And that's what I would have picked.
That's a fantastic take. I would give that a 9.7. That was a fantastic take.
I'll give it a 7.5.
Although
he's mad that I called out Kenny Mack.
Although
Kenny hates me anyway. I can say whatever I want. He would never like me.
We do play this game to win, and that's why my MVP is RTC. The reason why, I'm gonna give you a quick backstory, like I did on my live the other night. RTC came over here and got his ass beat by BIC after they beat Snow Tribe, did a little celebration. He came back and loaded up in 2023 and told BIC, we'll see you in the chip. Now, the reason why Big and me disappointed BIC in 2023, because they were supposed to go back-to-back with the loaded roster, meet Vegas in Vegas, and shut all of this shit up before we was even going to get to where we were at now this year. But, like we said, they folded because they didn't have someone like Dave Valley on the line. So now when they came back this year and Vegas came in our home and beat us, there isn't shit to talk about.
A blowout, by the way.
And then on top of that, you still have guys saying, "Oh, these guys are ass." Bro, you lost. And then what? None of the awards going to the Insomniacs. Now it's like they're doing the, "Oh yeah, we lost, but here guys, still take this." Still have some piece of East Coast dominance that we can still have. If they would have just gave the guys who deserve the awards, none of this shit wouldn't be going on still. No one would have the secret animosity. I'm not trying to say Vegas does, but like Corey said, right is right and wrong is wrong. When do we give guys who lost awards? Now, going back to my point for RTC, he literally carried the Insomniacs for 2 years on his back. Scooter is a fantastic quarterback. But when I literally say carry, and when you carry a team in the championship, every drive, power run, when your quarterback breaks his fucking hand and can't throw the ball, what more are you doing to carry your team back to a championship 2 years in a row? That is a MVP. And on top of that, he plays the fifth end, and he's a force. Come on now, it's both sides of the ball. You cannot not give this guy his flowers.
The doors of the
can't.
church are open. Is there one?
Listen,
come-
I think if there is an Insomniac, right? If we want to do best player, best team, the tough part about the Insomniacs is it's hard to pick which of their guys is the most important of their guys.
And they're going to defer to their teammates anyway because that's just who they are.
Because you could make the argument that it's Munchie for all that he does. You could make the argument that it's RTC for the impact and when he does something, how impactful it is. You could make the argument that it's Scott Hamilton because he's the leader and kind of the tone setter.
He's the
And
glue.
you could also make the case that that's Danye Lyons because of the impact that he has as a shutdown corner, a returner, and an offensive playmaker. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about what these teams were doing in the regular season, you know what the Insomniacs were doing in the regular season? Coasting, letting Zach Luciano put up stats against some of the bottom teams, letting Juice and Devontae Carter get 30 to 25% of the carries, and David Clark and Danye Lyons are ballers and among the best actual players by talent in our league. They were waiting for the stupid ass pro flag league to figure their shit out. So when you look at the Insomniac,
that while these guys were doing that in Vegas, BIC was not doing that against some of their lower competition back east.
I didn't pick one of them as the
MVP. But see, the fact of the matter is it goes both ways. So while you point at,
but I said it was Jeremy Geary.
While you point at the Insomniacs and say that about the Insomniacs,
right,
you can also point to BIC and their dominance in their division with some of the lesser teams that they had in their division where they were coasting as well.
Yeah,
so
but Sterry Codrington every snap at quarterback.
The times that you saw them step up were when they were playing the U and when they were playing the Watchmen, much like when the Insomniacs were playing. And I will give it to you, Jeremy Geary is a damn good quarterback. I'm not going to take anything away from him. And what he was able to do against the Insomniacs in that first game was very much incredible. What I'm saying is, if you have to look at one side or one team like that, you can start to break that down per division and say the chaos was the exact same from their division. So every division has that because there's only one or two teams that lead the division. In back east, it's 3. Out here, it's 3. In the Midwest, it's not. It's really 2. But that's just the name of the game. So while you could say that and say, well, look, man, the Insomniacs coasted. They've got all these players. People were taking back seats. Dude, there's people taking back seats on BIC. But there are players from BIC that won. And I agree with CP3. You should have been able to give flowers to some of the guys from the Insomniacs. Now, I'm not just saying that coming from here because had it been flip-flopped, had it been players from the Insomniacs that had won, I would be saying the exact same thing about BIC. They coasted, but still, they are a damn good team with a lot of good players that deserve their flowers as well. And while I agree with you that Dave Valley might have been the one that should have won Rookie of the Year, I agree with you. He's one of the guys that I would have put up there very easily and said, yes, here's a man that has gone above and beyond for his team, and he should be in that conversation. But what I'm saying is you shut out all the Insomniacs players looking at it from and I'm not saying that they're looking at it the same way you are, Corey, through the rose-colored glasses. But I'm saying is, if you have the Insomniacs and you're thinking about the Insomniacs that way, I could easily make the same argument for BIC.
Yeah, but you can't be with Sterry Codrington specifically and with the Insomniacs, because Sterry Codrington is the only guy that we're talking about that played every game, performed every game, and 100% of the passing yards for BIC were assigned to Sterry Codrington, regular and postseason. Yes, passion. And 50% of the rushing total for BIC. So when you look at the Insomniacs and you spread it out, 40% was RTC in the ground game. Then it was like 20 with three other guys, including Zach Luciano running around like a crazy person. And when you look at the passing yards, because of the amount of times that either Munchie was in there or Zach Luciano at quarterback, the Insomniacs look like it's 40% of the passing yards went to Scooter, and then 20% Shuford, and then 20% Luciano. And then when you look at the wide receiver split, it's like 15, 20 Mighty. So all that I'm saying with specifically what we're talking about here is when it comes to the Insomniacs, by far the best team in the league, and obviously the champs, to me, they're the only one that even gets close to standing out because of the ability for him to affect both sides of the ball statistically is RTC, especially because if we're being honest with ourselves, where Sickwit is a pass first team, the Insomniacs were a balanced, maybe even a run first team. And that tone is set by RTC first, with then Scooter going play action over the top to his receivers on one-on-one wide open coverage.
But it's an interesting argument that you're making, and the reason why it's an interesting argument that you're making.
Hold on. Yeah, one at a time. Chris,
the reason why it's an interesting argument that you're making is because what you're basically telling me and anybody who understands football would kind of look at this, and that is that, okay, so we're going to knock the guys that want to play more as a team sport than an individual sport.
In the individual award season, I think yes, we are.
Okay.
I mean, if guys want to share the responsibility of being the winners or the go-to guys on their team, then when it's award season and we're looking to give individual accolades for individual.
To me, it makes you stand out more if you have three running backs and one guy is the bell cow, and you have two guys that come in and spell that bell cow. It tells you a lot when that running back, and I'm not going to beat the bush. I'm going to say it straight out. When that bell cow is RTC and the way he can play the game, and you look at the two guys that come in behind him, and you could see the difference when they're in there. And it's not one of those things where I'm knocking them, because if these guys went someplace else, they would be the leaders of their groups. But you could see the difference between when RTC's in there and when some of the other guys are in there. And to me, that tells me exactly what I need to know about how important RTC is to the Insomniacs. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not knocking Juice. That's not knocking Devontae. That's just letting you know the difference of the running backs and how hard RTC runs. And I'm not saying Juice doesn't run hard and Devontae doesn't run hard, because they do. But the fact of the matter is RTC is just different, period. He's just different. And so when I see him on this field and I see the difference in that offense when he's playing, that tells me everything I need to know. But if you want to look at it as well, when we're talking about individualism and we're talking about the individual awards, then that's the way we need to look at it. So be it. But in my eyes, when I see a guy that is, and I'll give RTC more than 40%. You said 40, I'll give him more like 50. But when I see a man that does what he's done and is able to take it to both sides of the ball, I'm sorry, but I've got to bump him up a little bit more, even if you're talking about him being spelled and sharing time with two other players.
All right, guys.
And I would agree with RTC.
Oh, wow, it's 7:01. I didn't even realize.
Yeah,
real quick.
For me, regular season award, MVP is Jeremy Geary, because like we were talking about, the Insomniacs are, a balanced team, run team. Everybody's sharing the responsibility. Nobody's sharing the responsibility of being the quarterback for the passing team that was undefeated and the regular season Vegas champs, right? And now nobody's going to give him any credit for that. But I think that that's my pick there, and I've enumerated why. And I guess I'm just as biased because the rest of the friggin' awards, except for returner, I gave to goddamn BIC guys. Now, BIC, Insomniacs, both stacked rosters, but let's be clear. The MVP of this season was none other than number 9 for Sickwit, Jeremy Geary, the quarterback. And the best quarterback.
My final thoughts on that, and I'll tell you this, Corey. I can't argue with you about that. I really can't. That would be the one. If he was MVP, I couldn't argue with you, not at all, because I agree with you. I think that Jeremy had shown a lot more in this last season than what I thought he was capable of, and that's not a knock. It's only because of what I was watching when he played the Insomniacs, and they just seem to, whatever reason, they just seem to have had his number. And I didn't see that against other defenses like I did the Insomniacs. In that first game, when they beat the Insomniacs, you're 100% on. I saw a different quarterback that took it to another level. And what I saw from him during that game was very impressive. And I thought, wow, if this guy is able to make it, if they're able to make it deep into the playoffs, that's a game, or that's a team I want to follow and I want to watch, because of Jeremy Geary and what he's able to do. And not to mention what he was able to do with Darren Palmer specifically, because those two are special. And I mean that in every means of that. They are special. And I can't wait to see what happens in this upcoming season with those two. And I think that if Sickwit gets a couple more players that are on offense that are special like that, man, you damn well better watch out, because Jeremy is going to take advantage of those players, and it's going to be interesting to watch, and I can't wait.
And maybe even next week, Chris, when we talk about the best wide receivers of this year in the league.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good thing for next week.
I've got 3 on the top of my head right now, and I know that we've got 7 that we need to play. So there's 3 in the back of my mind right now that I want to talk about, and these gentlemen are extraordinarily good players.
It's a stacked position in our league.
It is. It really is.
Real quickly before we go, coming up to you in January, which is not too far from now, it is the Winter War. If you want to sign up and play, that QR code, scan it. It'll take you to a7flnevada.com, and you can register and get ready to be a part of the Winter War. And if you want to know more about the Winter War, check this out, courtesy of Creative Brothers Productions.
Winter is coming.
And he can make something magical happen here. And there goes the ball. It's going. It's going. You're a fan.
Battles will be won.
Hold on now.
At the 30, and he
Who's going to take victory?
and that's what championship points matter.
It's time for war.
And that was the Winter War, coming up to you in January of 2025. Special thanks to Derek Duncan for chiming in and joining us. And as you can see, Mr. Davidson has already started his list, -2. But next week, we will talk about the 7 best receivers from 2024 in the American Sevens Football League. But again, special thanks to Derek Duncan for chiming in and joining us. Special thanks to CP3, Corey Price from The Price is Right for joining us. As always, special thanks to the voice of reason, Corey Hammond, for Chris Farrow, and for myself, some light-skinned guy.
Charlie Batch.
Like to say, not that guy. Like to say thank you, and hello, Mr. Ashmore.
Uncle Charlie.
You can't say hello as we're saying goodbye. Fuck outta here.
I'm saying hello to hey.
No, to him. You're allowed to say whatever you want.
Okay, but nonetheless, thank you guys for joining us here on episode 110 on the other side of the ball, and I guess next week is the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, since it's 1-1-1. But anyhow, from all of us here at the A7FL, What's that? Hold on.
Don't put that up here. He's saying hello as the show ends.
We're saying goodbye.
Go rewatch the whole thing and then put the comments in that aren't live so we can get the YouTube algorithm up. But thanks for joining us in I don't know, 5 minutes after the show usually ends. Great.
Hey,
good on you.
Hey, we're on time. Nonetheless, for Corey, for Chris, I'm Dub. We'll see you on the other side of the ball. Take care of yourself and each other. See you next week.
I'll see y'all.